Right. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Can
Yes, we
everyone
can
see
see your screen. Yeah.
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you very much. Okay, let me expand this and then okay. Where are you? Right. Okay. So we are going to be talking about communicate. We're going to start with communication. You know that last class we talked about the concepts of communication. So we'll just do a short refresher and then we will continue with today's class. So what exactly is communication? Put simply, communication is how we share information, thoughts, feelings, and even our ideas. Now, whether you're talking to a friend, writing an email, presenting in class like I am doing right now, or even just nodding your head as you're, in response to something someone says, you're communicating. Now, communication can happen in different forms. We have verbal, that is speaking or writing. We have nonverbal, which is facial expressions, body language, or even silence. And then we have visual, like infographics, memes, or again, like what I'm showing to you, the PowerPoint slides. And so for communication to work, 5 things must be in place. You have to have a sender, a message, a medium, a receiver, and you have to have feedback. If any of these things are missing, well, I don't start with that, okay? So can anyone give me some kind of real life, okay, let me not start asking questions just yet. Let more people join the class and then we will continue. I'll ask questions later. Let's just go along now because I can see that we're not a lot of us in class just yet. Now, let's talk about the different forms of presentation and things like that. Why does presentation skills, why does it even matter, in the workplace or even in academia, as the case may be? Now, in academia, you may need to defend your project or explain your research or even teach a topic to, your classmates. Now, if your presentation skills are sharp, then you stand tall, even if you're nervous, okay? And in the workplace, presentation skills will help you pitch an idea, lead meetings, win clients, and even secure promotion. So one strong presentation can basically just open doors that you never imagined. Plus, when you communicate well, you boost your confidence, you build trust, and you even gain respect. So people will say, this one knows what he's doing or what she's doing, and that I mean that's what we want, isn't it? That's what everybody wants. Of course, there are a number of barriers when it comes to effective communication. I mean, let's be honest, communication doesn't always go smoothly. There are some wahala factors, you can call them barriers, that can block the message the way, sometimes NEPA will just take light and you don't understand what is going on the other end. So we need to look at, the 4 main barriers. Okay, we have the physical barrier, and this could be distance, it could be noise, it could be bad network, things like that. Imagine trying to talk to someone. I mean, the way I'm talking like this now, and you can barely hear me. And we've had these kind of things happen every now and again, and it's really frustrating. So yeah, there's the aspect of physical barriers. Then we also have psychological barriers. Things like fear, things like stress, bias. Maybe you're nervous, or you don't trust the person speaking. That kind of tension basically just spoils the whole gist. Okay. Then we have semantic barriers, big grammar or technical terms that confuse people. Things we start to say things like, oh, synergize paradigms. Meanwhile, the person doesn't understand what you're saying. So it's important to speak simply and clearly. You don't have to use big words to get your message across. Then we also have cultural barriers. Cultural barriers, our African cultures are beautiful, but they're different. And not even only African cultures, you have European cultures, you have American cultures, all kinds of cultures. And in some places, eye contact means confidence. In other places, it means being rude. So misunderstandings can happen if we're not culturally aware. And so what's the solution to these things? Number one, be aware, be clear, and be open. And then ask questions. Simplify your words. Watch your body language, watch other people's body language, things like that. Okay. And then we'll go to the types of presentations that exist. Okay. So you must know the difference between, the presentation types that exist, and, make sure that you can use the right tone and the right context. Okay. So the first one is informative presentation. And this is where you teach or explain something like, how to use Canva, how to plant cassava, or how AI works in advertising, things like that. Okay. Then we have persuasive presentation. Persuasive presentation is where you're trying to convince people, like a sales pitch, okay, a campaign speech, or when you're asking for funding for your startup or things like that. That is what persuasive presentation is about. And then we have the academic presentation, right? Now, this one is formal, it's research-based, and it is structured. So, you're thinking about things like seminar papers, like thesis, defense, like project reports, things like that. And, each one has its own flavor. The same way, egusi has its flavor, ogbono has its flavor, okra has its flavor. Basically, all the presentations to have their own individual flavors. Okay, so yeah, always ask what the goal of your presentation is before you start to prepare for them. Okay, so today's gist is not it's not small gist. We've seen that communication is not just talk. It's an intentional process that affects how we live, how we learn, how we lead. So no matter who you are, however old you are, you have the power to speak, with impact. So throughout this training, I just want you to stretch your comfort zone, okay? And then ask questions if you have any, and then we'll take it from there. So that's for the recap from our last class. All right. Now, let's go to our next class. Our next class. Sorry, can I just have like 1 second? I don't know. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry about the breaking transmission. And I'm back. Okay, so yeah, we're now in our we're now in the thick of what we came to do here today. Okay, and so module 2 of our topic today talks about planning a written or oral presentation. Okay, and basically what you want to do is to start with choosing and narrowing down a topic. Okay, choosing and narrowing down a topic. Yes, picking a topic might seem easy until you sit down and you realize that you don't know where to start. Okay, so yeah, basically this is what you want to do. First things first, your topic has to make sense for the assignment or the situation. Okay, so if you're presenting for a school project, for instance, the topic should align with the subject or the course. You can't be talking about how to cook jollof rice in a biology seminar, except you're relating it to nutrition or food chemistry as it were. Okay, so same thing also applies in the workplace, right? You don't talk about the history of Afrobeat at a business review meeting. You have to stay relevant. Okay, so relevance is extremely important. You have to stay relevant, and you have to ask yourself, does this topic fit the purpose? Okay, and then the step 2 is choose something interesting, right? You need to choose something interesting that something that's interesting to you and your audience. Don't go and pick a boring topic because it sounds serious. If you're not excited about it, your audience won't be either, because I mean it will shine through as it were. Okay, so choose something that you genuinely care about, something you find um something curious, right? Something you find curious. And if you're passionate, that energy will shine through, and it will capture your listeners. And also you need to consider your audience. What will catch their attention, right? What do they already know, and what will be new, fun, and or even helpful to them? It's like choosing a gist topic in your WhatsApp group, and you need to make sure that this is something that you that will engage people, so to speak, and in a nutshell. Okay, and then we go to researchable. Okay, you don't want to pick a topic that is all vibes. That there's no facts, to be found in them. So you need something you can back up with evidence, something you can back up with stories, with data, or even examples. So, for example, you pick a topic like the impact of social media on youth mental health, for instance. Now, that's a good one, right? There's plenty of research, the articles, the case studies that will help support your points. But imagine going to pick a topic like aliens are spying on us through Instagram. Who will you put? How? Are you whining me? So bottom line is that make sure that your topic has enough support material to build a solid presentation. Okay, and then you need to narrow it down. That means that you need to get specific, and this is very, very important. Sometimes the topic that you choose may be too broad, right? So when you do things like that, you can liken it to carrying a bag of rice by yourself. Do you understand? So if you have, let's look at an example now. You want to choose a topic, and you say something like, technology in Africa. That's too wide. Do you understand? That's way, I mean, that's too much, you know. So what you want to do is you want to narrow it down to something like, oh, how mobile money is changing rural trade in East Africa, for instance, you know. So, you know, that makes the topic more manageable and more focused, as it were. And then in this case, you want to ask yourself that, is this a topic that I can cover in 5 to 10 minutes or in 1,000 words? And then can I explain this topic without rushing or running out of time? And if your answer is no, then it's important that you trim, you know, the fat, and then you zoom in. Okay. So yeah, that's extremely important part of narrowing down a topic. Okay. Now, the other thing you want to do, okay, so at the end of the day, right, you want to make sure that when you're doing this, you pick a topic that matches the goal, right? You make sure that it is something that excites your audience. You make sure that you choose something that has evidence, and then you make sure that it's something that you can narrow down. And once you follow these steps, you know, selecting a topic will no longer feel like you're choosing a baby name under pressure or, you know, things like that. So yeah, basically that is it. Now, the next thing is that you want to, since we've talked about choosing a topic now, and you know, you're certain that it's something that is relevant, it is interesting, it's researchable, it's even specific. You know, you have to now think about how do you narrow it down without getting lost, right? So that's why we have a tool called the who, what, why, and how, right? The who, what, why, and how. It's a strategy. Now, trust me, this is a small but mighty formula, and it can change your vague idea into a focused, punchy presentation in a matter of minutes. Okay, so let's break it down. Right? The 4 questions are what? Who, what, why, how, right? So the first question you're asking is that what? Who is involved or affected? You then need to ask yourself that, who am I talking to? Is it students? Is it single mothers? Is it business owners in Ghana or in Nigeria? Or is it remote workers in any part of wherever, whether it's in Lagos, whether it's in Abuja, whether it's in Helsinki, wherever. Now, this will help you zoom in on your audience or subject group, as it were. Okay. Now, don't talk about everyone in Africa. Talk about a specific group, right? Except, of course, if your audience is the entirety of Africa, then that's a different story entirely, okay? So you want to think about, you know, all those things, and then you now decide on what you want to do. Secondly, you want to think about what the main issue or focus is, right? Now, what is the core of the topic? Is it unemployment? Is it access to clean water? Is it social media addiction? Is it gender inequality? You need to avoid rambling and stick to a strong one strong idea. Okay? You know that at that point, that is what you want to tackle, and that is your what, right? So your main issue, your what. And then your why, you're asking yourself, why is it important? Why is it relevant? All right. And this is where passion enters. So you ask, why should anybody care about this? Does it involve a real problem? Is it something trending or urgent? Does it affect people's lives or their livelihoods? If you can't answer the why, clearly you may need to pick, a more powerful or timely topic, right? And then how? How will you explore, explain, or argue, argue it? You need to think about your approach. It is very important. So will you present the facts and statistics, or do you share personal stories, or will you use cases? Or will it be a comparison? Will it be a problem solution? Whatever, you need to just know how, because how helps you start planning your structure, right? And then it shows your audience that you didn't come to play. Okay, so yeah, basically so let me think about an example that we can test together. Okay, imagine someone says, I want to talk about education in Africa, right? Now that is broad. So we need to apply this strategy to that. Who is involved? Who is affected? Maybe we say secondary school girls in Yola. Okay. And then what is the main issue? You choose something like, barriers to staying in school. The next question you're asking yourself is, why, right? So your answer to that would probably be, it affects national development, it affects gender equality, and perhaps, yeah, poverty cycles, okay? And then how? You want to say through stories, through NGO case studies, through statistics, things like that. And boom, once you've been able to answer those questions, you have, a laser sharp topic. So your topic can now be something like barriers facing secondary school girls in rural Yola, and how they affect gender equality. Now tell me if that is not a better topic than just saying education in Africa. So I mean, I hope you understand what I was trying to say in this whole thing. So the who, the what, the who, what, why, and how strategy is basically like your GPS for choosing and shaping any topic, and it gives your idea structure, it gives it focus, it gives it purpose, and it saves you from standing in front of a crowd and talking in circles, basically. So you must always think and pause and think and ask yourself, who is this about? What am I really talking about? Why does it matter? How will it explain, or sorry, how will I explain or prove it? And that's it, no stress. We're already halfway to a strong presentation. Okay. Then the next thing you want to do is you need to understand audience and purpose. All right. Audience and purpose. Now, have you ever been in a conversation where someone was just talking, and you were just like, who is this person even talking to? Now, that, my friends, is what happens when someone doesn't understand their audience or purpose. And I've seen this happen many times, And in communication, especially presentation, it's a big red flag. So, it's important that, we understand the concept of, knowing your audience and then understanding your purpose, so to speak. Trust me, if you get this right, you'll never deliver a flat or confusing message again. Okay, so number one, know your audience, right? Look, okay, so you can't give the same um kind of presentation to secondary school students, university lecturers, and market women. It's impossible unless you want to just lose everybody after 5 seconds. So we need to break it, break it down. When in knowing your audience, you need to understand that um, who are they? Are they Gen Z students who live online, or are they middle-aged professionals with busy, schedules? Young people may prefer more visuals and vibes, while the older folk might prefer structure, facts or lived experience examples. So, it's important to know what it is that you want to present to your audience, who they are, and the kind of things that they're interested in. Okay. And secondly, their knowledge level is important. So you have to ask yourself, do they already know this topic? Or am I introducing them to something brand new? So if your audience knows nothing about AI, for instance, don't start by quoting deep machine learning theory or things like that. Start from the ABCs. But if they're tech savvy, then of course you can go deeper. So it's like seasoning. You must balance it. Too much salt, wahala. Not enough, bland. Sure you get. So yeah, basically that's for that. And then thirdly, you have to know what their cultural background, and then understand the context, because in Africa, we're beautifully diverse, different countries, tribes, religions, languages, and values. Now, some people like direct talk, right? Others prefer diplomacy. Some cultures use more gestures, others don't. So you must be sensitive to how people might interpret what you say or show. Okay, so for example, a joke that flies in Lagos might completely flop in Kigali, right? So it's important that you ask yourself, will my message be clear and respectful to this group of people? Okay. And then, now here's a big one. What does your audience want from you? Right? What are they hoping to learn? Are they hoping to learn something new? Are they hoping to be inspired? Are they hoping to make a decision? All right? Or even get motivated? Whatever it is that they're expecting from you, you have to kind of like have an understanding of it. Because if you understand what they're expecting, then you can shape your content to meet or even exceed those expectations. Okay. So you need to understand your purpose. Okay. Now, you know who you're talking to. You understand, all their interests and things like that. It's now important to understand why you're talking to them. Now, every time you speak, you must be clear on your purpose. You must ask yourself, am I trying to inform? Am I trying to persuade? Am I trying to motivate, entertain, or even challenge, right? So let's say you're pitching a business idea. Your purpose at that point is to persuade. So if you're teaching your classmates how to use ChatGPT, then at that point, you're trying to inform. And if you're sharing your life story at an event, okay, your purpose might either be to inspire or to entertain. All right. So yeah, it's very important that you understand these things. So imagine that you're giving a presentation um, about healthy eating, right? If your audience is, a group of university students, then you need to focus on topics like, energy, brain food, quick meals, things like that. That is what will interest a university audience, right? Students. And then if you're talking to parents in a rural health workshop, for instance, then at that point, your focus is on child nutrition, on affordability, and on local options. Then you now want to talk to corporate executives. At this point, you want to talk about managing a diet during tight schedules or stress, how to, things like that, basically. What's it called? Bulk cooking, food apportioning, things like that, meal prep. That's kind of thing you want to talk to, a group of executives about. So the same topic, but, your approach changes depending on who you're talking to and what you perceive that they might want. So it's important that, your audience plus your purpose has to align, all right? Your audience and your purpose has to align. And at the end of the day, when they do align, then you have clear and powerful communication. If you ignore the audience, then you're just talking to yourself. And if you ignore the purpose, you're talking without direction. But when you combine the both, then, I dare say that you become unstoppable. All right? And then the next thing you want to make sure that you're doing is that you clarify that purpose. Okay? You clarify that purpose. Now, let me ask you a question. After a presentation, maybe you've written something and all of that. What exactly is it that you want your audience to do? Do you want them to clap for you? Or do you want them to actually, go home and do something with what it is that you have said? Now, if you don't know your purpose, you'll be speaking plenty of English and you still will not hit the point. So you have to clarify your purpose so that your message basically lands gidigba like thunder. Okay, so before you open PowerPoint, before you write your first sentence, you need to pause and ask, what do I want my audience to feel, to think, or to do after this? Now, this question will shape the words that you choose. It will shape the tone, that you use, and it will even help, for instance, the examples that you give will also be impacted by, that thought, that question that you're asking yourself. All right. So there are four major types of communication purposes. Excuse me. And number one of them is that you want it to inform. Okay? The purpose is to inform. You want your information to inform. You want to share knowledge, you want to share data. And this one is like saying that, oh, I just want to teach or explain something. So maybe you're showing your classmates how to use Google Docs, or you're presenting facts about climate change. You're not, trying to argue or convince. You're just giving them useful information, right? So, for example, you're saying to a group of people that here's what you need to know about malaria prevention in rural Africa, okay? Secondly, your purpose is to persuade, okay? Persuade. So at this point, you want to influence opinions, or you want to inspire action. You want to influence opinions and you want to inspire action. And this one is about changing minds, okay? It's about moving people to act. You want your audience to say, maybe I should start doing that, or you know what, this is right. That's the kind of thing you want to inspire at that point in time. So yeah, basically that's it. And then the next thing you want to do is that you want to clarify your purpose by deciding whether you want it to instruct. Okay, you want it to instruct. You want to explain. At this point, what you're trying to do is you want to explain a process, or you want to teach a skill. Now, it's about guiding people through a step-by-step process. So maybe you're teaching how to use Canva, or how to apply for a visa, or how to write a great CV. Okay? You must be clear, you must be logical, and you must be simple. Break it down like you're showing someone how to tie gili or how to fry puff for the first time. It has to be like, a step-by-step guide to doing that particular thing. And then, of course, the next point is to inspire. So at this point, you're thinking you want to uplift, you want to encourage, you want to motivate. Now, this one touches the hearts, right? You're not just giving information. At this point, you're giving hope. Okay, you want your audience to feel motivated, to feel moved, or even ready to change their life. Okay, so this kind of speech or even presentation is great for events, for graduation talks, for TED style settings, or anywhere you want to leave people saying, wow, I can do this too. Basically, that's it. So your message can be powerful, but only if you are clear on your purpose. At that point, when you want to inspire, don't try to inform, don't try to persuade, don't try to instruct. Just inspire at that point. At any point, whatever it is that you're trying to do, don't try to do everything at the same time. Choose one main goal, right? Before you do any of this thing, you need to make sure that you choose a particular purpose. You clarify, you decide what it is you want to do, whether you want to inform them, whether you want to persuade them, whether you want to instruct them, and whether you want to inspire them. So before every speech or any written work, you need to ask yourself, do I want to teach them something? Do I want to change their mind? Do I want to show them how to do something? Or do I just want to lift them up and make them believe in themselves? Now, once you choose your purpose, your message becomes sharper, it becomes stronger, and of course, more unforgettable. Okay? And then you need to structure your content. You need to know how to structure your content. You see, when you eat jollof rice or pounded yam, you know that there's order to that meal, right? So you start somewhere and you finish somewhere. Now, that's the same thing that happens with a good presentation or essay. Without structure, your message is like uncooked spaghetti. It's just long and there. But when it's structured, then it's sweet, it's satisfying, and it sticks. All right. So let's learn the classic structure to it. It includes an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. This is the foundation of great communication. Okay. Introduction talks about setting the stage for success. Okay. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of it, right? How do we actually start a presentation or a speech, right? Because let me tell you, your introduction is powerful. It's like, it's the red carpet moment. So if you don't capture attention in the first 30 seconds, people will check out, whether mentally or physically. Especially if NEPA now decides to take like 7 hours. So let's learn how to craft an introduction that makes your audience say, I'm listening, tell me more, right? First, step one is that you grab attention with a hook, okay? So you need to start with something like something catchy, something that makes people stop scrolling in their minds. Try a shocking statistic, a short personal story or a rhetorical question. It could even be a relevant quote, because by doing this, it's your way of saying this isn't just another boring talk. This one is, for you. For example, excuse me, you said something like, oh, did you know that 68% of university students struggle with time management? Now, it's a statistic, right? And it makes people think, wait, I might be part of that number. So that will catch their attention. Or you say something like, oh, let me tell you about the time that I almost missed my final exam because I couldn't manage my time, right? I learned the hard way. Now, that is bound to get another person who already probably struggles with time management. And it just basically pulls that person in, okay? And then step two is that you need to give some background, okay? So your audience needs a little bit of context. And this is not like the full gist or anything, but just enough so that they know why the topic is important, right? So, you say things like, you ask questions like, oh, where is the issue coming from? Who is affected? Why now? Okay, so, something like, while so many students are juggling classes, side hustles, and social life, time has become one of our biggest struggles. Okay, now it's short, it's simple, but now your audience understands the bigger picture. Okay, so yeah, and then there's another step that you want to clearly state the purpose or the thesis, right? Now this part is important because it's saying what exactly you're going to be talking about. So you need to be direct, you need to be clear, and you let your audience know what to expect. So are you explaining something? Are you teaching a process? Or are you trying to change their mind? Do you understand? Basically, an example of that kind of purpose statement would be, oh, did you know that 68% of university students struggle with time management, with classes, with part-time jobs, and social media distractions? So it's easy to feel overwhelmed. Today, we'll explore how to master your time in 3 simple practical steps. Now you see that at this point, you have hooked them, you've given them context, and you've told them what they're about to do. So they're ready, they're ready. So you need to avoid starting with, oh, my name is, or I'm here to talk about, that's weak. That was things that used to happen in the past. Now we'll start with a bang, so you do that and then you introduce yourself as you go on. Okay, so yeah, now remember that your introduction sets the tone. A strong start will keep people with you. A weak one loses them before you even get to the good stuff. Okay, so you need to start bold, stay clear, and always tell them where you're taking them. from the moment that they follow you all the way to the very end. They will follow like, you're the choir master and they are the choir, a very well behaved choir. If uh, if we want to qualify it that way, okay? Secondly, there's the body. There's the body. So now that you've grabbed their attention with, a solid intro, they're sitting up, they're nodding, they're even putting their phones down. What's next? Now it's time to deliver the main content, okay? The body. This is where you build your case, you explain your ideas, you prove your points. So you think of it like the main dish at a party. If the rice is tasteless, no one will remember, your jollof, no matter how fine that plate that you put it on is, okay? So you need to make sure that you organize your main ideas logically, okay? Logically. Now, one of the biggest mistakes that people make is just talking anyhow, jumping from Lagos to London without any passport or direction. Your main points should flow logically. Let's look at how that is going to work.
Hello, ma'am.
First, yes. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Is there a problem? Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you, ma'am.
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am.
Okay, because Mercy tried to get my attention. I thought maybe people couldn't hear. Okay.
Yeah, clear enough, ma'am. We
Perhaps.
can hear you.
Okay, that's fine. So I can go on then. Thank you. Right. So I was saying that your main points need to flow logically. And so when you're explaining, you need to make sure that it is in first chronological order, okay? Like a process or a historical event, for instance. So you say something like, oh, first we planted the seeds, then we watered them daily. After 4 weeks, we began to see the results. So you're showing how something happened from the beginning in time, right? The next thing that you want to do is that you then want to do some kind of cause and effect explanation, really. So when you do that, what you're doing is that you want to show that one thing leads to another, okay? Like this is the cause and this is the effect of that cause. So an example of that would be, because students lack access to time management tools, they often fall behind in their studies. So you can see the reason why something happens and what the resultant effect of that thing ends up becoming. That means that we're talking about cause and effect. Okay? And then the next thing you want to do is problem solution. Excuse me. Problem solution, which is great for persuasive talkers. So you start with the issue and then you offer ways to solve it. Example of that will be many rural communities don't have internet access, and one solution is offline learning platforms that work via SMS. So what you do basically at the end of this is that you choose one that fits your topic and you stick to it. Don't mix too many at once or you confuse your audience, okay? So you want to use excuse me. You want to use clear sections or paragraphs, you know, you want to start with it. And basically, excuse me, my nose is running, sorry. Sorry, just a minute, let me. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. So I was saying, shouldn't be here. So I was saying that, yeah, so you want to make sure that you use sections or you use paragraphs, right, with each main point. Now you treat each main point like it's a mini story, okay? So you give it space and then you make it shine. So each section should start with a clear point, right? And then you must be supported with evidence, and then you then link to the next idea smoothly. So at this point, what you're doing is that you're guiding your audience like a good tour, right? First stop, let's talk about the problem. Next stop, let's talk about the impact. Final stop, let's talk about the solution. Easy as ABC, okay? And then you want to support with evidence, right? You're not just vibing, you're breaking your points with evidence. People trust you more, right? When you show that you've done your homework, okay? So here's what you can use. You can use facts and statistics, because numbers don't lie, at least. Unless politicians use them. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Then you want to use examples like real life cases or events. You want to use quotes that come from experts or relevant voices. And then you want to use anecdotes, short personal stories that help you humanize your points. So yeah. Then there's something called signposting, right? Let's be honest. If your points are fine, you're just jumping anyhow, and your audience will basically they'll get lost. So use something like signposts, like we think of them as traffic signs for your ideas. Okay, so firstly is an example of a signpost. Secondly, thirdly, those are examples of signposts. Or you say things like in addition or moreover, or you say things like however, on the other hand. You say for example, and then you say things like finally and in conclusion. So an example of that would be, firstly, let's look at the causes. Secondly, we'll explore the impact. Finally, we'll share a few solutions. And, basically, that's how you use signposts. It just helps you get your message more understood, and as the case may be. So yeah, your body is where the real magic is, okay? But magic also needs method. So you basically, you have to ensure that your body is organized logically, chronologically. There's of course an effect. There's problem and solution type scenarios there, and then all of that. basically that is. And then remember that a good body is not about sounding fancy. It's just about being clear. Please don't make the mistake of thinking that, oh, by using big words and speaking what we refer to as phone and all of that, you're going to be passing the right message across. No, you need to be clear, you need to be logical, and you need to be persuasive. If your structure is solid, your audience will not only understand, but they'll also remember you. Yeah, so basically that's it for the body. And then the conclusion, okay? The conclusion, you have to leave them with something to remember. You know that when someone just ends up talking suddenly, like a dropped call, they don't like do some kind of wrap up, as it were. They don't do closure. You're just there like, wait, is that all? Like, no, I mean, it's that leaves some kind of I don't know, for me it leaves a bad taste in my mouth, like, oh, that's just it, you just stop abruptly like that. So your conclusion matters. It's important that you do a conclusion. So if the last thing your audience hears is um I don't know, I can't think of anything just right now, but it's important to just know that you're leaving your audience with a lasting impression. Okay, so if you get it right, they'll remember your message, and if you fumble it, they might forget everything that you've said before. So it's important that in conclusion that you summarize your points, okay, your key points. You start by giving them a quick summary, just the highlights, and at the end of it, this helps your audience to remember the journey that you took them on, okay? And then secondly, you need to offer a call to action, a reflection, or restate the importance of what it is that you said. Okay, so this is the point where you ask them to do something, or you leave them with something that you want them to reflect on. It's your chance to ignite change, like planting a lasting idea or impression, as the case may be. So an example call to action would be something like, so here's my challenge to you. Pick just one time management strategy that we discussed and try it out for the week. When you say things like that, it makes them gingered, and it also helps them remember what it is that you said. So it's important to leave a lasting impression. You want your audience to leave with a feeling of being inspired, or being challenged, or ready to act, or even smiling. Okay, end with something strong. A quote, a memorable line, a personal statement, something that sticks. Give them a little bit of goosebumps by the time you're done, with that particular topic that you're treating at that time. Okay, so it's important. Always bring the main ideas together, tell them what to do or think, and leave a mark, end with power. So even if your slides fail, or your mic cuts out, or something like that happens, at least there's something that you said that they will remember. Okay, there's something that you said that. So in communication, your conclusion is actually your legacy. It's your final word. It's your signature. So you're given a chance to make your message unforgettable. So don't just end, like land like a pro, land like someone who came to speak and left the room changed. Okay. Then we have outlining versus scripting. Outlining versus scripting. Okay, imagine this, right? You've chosen your topic, you've structured your content, and now it's time to prepare your delivery. But how should you prepare, right? Should you write everything down word for word? Or should you just jot down bullet points? Now, that's where outlining and scripting come in. Now, they're both useful tools, but for different reasons, okay? Now, let me break it down the way. Let me just break it down for you, okay? Now, think of outlining as planning the journey, right? Without writing every single step down. What you're doing is that you're creating a map, not a travel vlog, okay? So at this point, what you're doing is that you're putting down bullet points or brief notes, right? You're putting down main ideas with the supporting facts, and you're putting down a logical flow of what happens first, what happens next, and what happens last, okay? Now, it helps you stay organized, but it also gives you the freedom to speak naturally, right? So an example outline would be the intro, the hook, like the quotes that you're giving about leadership or whatever it is, right? There's the point, the first point, that is qualities of a good leader. Second point, leadership styles in African history. Third point, how to grow leadership in use, okay? And then there's a conclusion, the call to action, something like, oh, lead wherever you are. Now with this, you're not just reading, right? You're speaking from structure, which helps you connect better with your audience, okay? So yeah, and one of the best times, or the few times that is important to use outlining, is when you want to deliver a talk naturally or confidently, right? You want to stay flexible in case of time changes or interruptions, whatever it is. And then you also want to sound conversational instead of sounding robotic, okay? Now it's great for class presentations, for business pitches or casual talks. It helps you sound, more real, like you're having a conversation and not just reading a script, right? And then there's the script writing aspect of it. Now, script writing is the full package. You're writing every single word you plan to say. And it helps. It helps when you need to be very accurate with your language, like if it's a formal speech, or if it's a news broadcast, or it's an academic paper, okay? So yeah, and then also when you're nervous and you want to feel more prepared, then it will help you that wise as well. And then of course, when you're submitting text along with a presentation or something like that, yeah, basically that's it. Now there's a problem with the script trap, right? That's what I call it, a script trap. If you just read your script word for word without practicing, you sound flat, okay? You might even lose your audience because you're more focused on your paper than the people. And so if you write a script, you need to ensure that you've practiced it well until you can deliver it like it's your own natural voice, okay? Yeah, basically that's the differences between outlining and script writing. And personally, I think I prefer outlining because, like, I said before, script writing, yeah, if you've not practiced it, it's like, you're in a movie and you're reading the thing word for word without, or you're recalling it word for word without emotion in it. So yeah, I mean, definitely recommend starting with outlining, and then you can only expand it into a script if it is absolutely needed. That way you've got, structure, and if you need to polish it, then you can script, and then maybe perhaps after a while start to sound more natural. So remember that outlining gives you wings, right? And script writing, what it does is that it gives you grounding. So the best the communicators, they know when it is that they want to fly, and they know when it is that they want to land. Basically, what I'm saying to you is that you need to find your balance, and you practice like you mean it, whether it is outlining that you're using or it is scripting that you're using. Okay. Then we have brainstorming techniques. Okay. Now, before we even think about outlining or writing anything, we need to do, something that is more important, and that is clear the mental clutter. Okay. Clear the mental clutter. And that's basically what brainstorming does. It's like warming up before a workout, or sweeping the compound before you start to decorate it, right? You get the messy stuff out of the way so that your good ideas can shine. Okay. So why brainstorm? Because your head is full of ideas, but they're just always flying around, right? So brainstorming will help you unlock the hidden ideas, in your head. It will help you organize your thoughts. It will help you avoid things like writer's block and speaker's block, as it were. And then, yeah, it also helps you get excited about your topic, right? So I mean, it's like shaking a bottle of mineral, what's it called? Mineral water. And once you open it, soda pop is what I was trying to say. The same minerals. Soda pop, and then after shaking it, you open it, and then the thing just bursts out. The effervescence just explodes through the bottle that way. That's what happens. So yeah, and there are different techniques for brainstorming. So you have something called free writing or free talking. Free writing or free talking. When you want to do free writing or free talking, what you want to do is basically just set a timer for 3 to 5 minutes, right? And then just speak or write everything that comes to your mind about a particular topic. No editing, no judgment. You're the one doing it. Nobody's looking at it, right? Now, an example prompt would be like, oh, what comes to mind when you hear the word youth empowerment, right? So you write or you say as much as possible, even random thoughts, and then you can later find the gold that is inside of the mess. Okay. Then you do mind mapping. Now, this is a visual method, right? You write your topic in the center of a page or a sketchbook, whatever it is, and then you draw, the branches that are related in it, much like what you have on the screen, right? Like a spider web, or maybe even a tree. Now, this is great for people who think visually or like seeing connections. Okay. Excuse me. So an example of that would be entrepreneurship branches, right? So in the center there, you put entrepreneurship branches, and then you draw out, you know, the branches, and then you start to fill it with things like skills, like funding, like challenges, social media, youth involvement. And before you know it, you know, you've built a full presentation structure by doodling, basically. I do this a lot, you know, because it helps me put put things together in my mind, basically. Now, there's also something called word association. Word association, okay? Now, what you do with word association is that you start with a single word, and then you write or say the first thing that comes to mind, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next. And then it basically helps you build, you know, a related chain of thoughts, as it were. Okay? And then we have group brainstorming. Group brainstorming. Now with group brainstorming, two heads are better than one, Abi. Now this technique helps and works well in a in a class or group setting, basically, where each one person thinks alone, and then they after a while they come together and then they discuss. They either pair up or come in groups of threes and things like that, and then share with a larger group. Now this will help shy students open up about, you know, things that, you know, that they're thinking about, and then of course everybody now brings their perspective to it, and at the end of the day you have, you know, the thought of many as opposed to just your own thought, as it were. Okay, and then there's something also called question storming. Question storming. Now, instead of listing answers, you list as many questions as possible, right? And then the questions then lead to curiosity, and then curiosity leads to powerful content. Okay. Now, don't just judge your ideas based on what you came up with earlier, right? Let them flow in first, right? So first quantity and then quality. Then you can use music, you can use images, you can use headlines to even spark new ideas. And then of course take a break and come back if you feel stuck. Okay, because sometimes that million naira idea might just come after you've stopped, you know, overthinking and, you know, all whatnot. So yeah, basically that's that for that. Now, well, in mind mapping, right? Like I said before, it's like drawing branches from the center out, right? There's one central idea in the middle, and then everything else branches out from there. Now, me, I'm a visual learner, and so I'm the kind of person who likes to do mind mapping, right? Now, mind mapping is that technique that helps you to visually organize your thoughts instead of writing in straight lines like an essay, or sketching ideas like a diagram, right? So it's great for generating ideas. It's great for planning speeches or essays. It's good for studying topics that have many parts, right? And then of course it also helps you to think creatively and freely. Okay, now how do you mind map? You start with the central idea, like I said before. You write it in the middle of a page or a board, and then you make it bold, and you draw, you know, a little icon around it, if you like, of course. And then you branch out into subtopics. So there's your main points or themes, And then, of course, what you then do is that you draw lines and you from the center, and then it looks like the spokes of a wheel. Now you start to add details to each branch. This could be questions, this could be facts, this could be examples, or even just sub branches, right? And then you can use different colors and symbols or doodles. But don't worry about making it neat. It's really just about the flow, okay? And you being able to understand it at the end of the day. And why does it work? Because for visual learners like me, this method makes it makes everything come together, everything just clicks. So you can see your ideas at a glance, right? No long paragraphs, no confusion or anything like that. And so if you're not, if you're not a visual learner, it also helps you spot gaps in the way you've put your things together and all of that. And then it helps basically, it helps you to link your thoughts even more creatively. So if you're stuck on a topic, draw it out first, right? Before you outline or you script, because you'll be surprised at the number of good points that will come to mind once you start to see it visually. Okay, so mind mapping is like brainstorming, which is why I talked a lot about brainstorming when I started to talk about mind mapping as well. Like if it helps you to explore all your angles without feeling stuck. Okay, that's what mind mapping does. And then free writing. I talked about free writing briefly before. Now, what you do with free writing is that you let your words flow freely. Okay? You let your words flow freely. It's simple, but it's extremely powerful. No pressure, no rules, just you, your pen, and your brain, right? It's called free writing. And it's one of the best ways to unlock hidden thoughts. It helps you to find your voice, and then you start building content without stress, okay? And free writing is exactly what it sounds like, writing freely. You set a timer, you pick a topic, and you just go with the flow. I do this a lot, okay? Everything that pops into your head about that thing, it doesn't even have to really like make sense, but just the words, and then you can you can edit it afterwards. Okay, so initially you don't stop, you don't edit, you don't worry about punctuation, you don't worry about grammar, or you don't worry about sounding smart. Why? Because the goal is not perfection at that point. The goal is discovery. Okay, so how do you do it? You set a timer for like 5 to 10 minutes. You choose a topic or a prompt, and then you start to write, and you write non-stop until the timer goes off. Like I said, do not edit. Don't even scratch your head. Just, just let your thoughts let your thoughts lead you. Even if it goes off topic for a bit, right? Just keep doing it. And why is it so powerful? Like I said, it helps you discover your personal angle on on a topic, and then it helps you to reveal emotions or even opinions that you didn't know were there before. And then yeah, it can also help you generate raw material that you can later shape into something great. So it's like opening a tap at first, and the water might be dirty, but then you let it flow, and then you start to get some clarity. Please um give me 30 seconds. Let me drink some water. Okay, I'm back. Thank you for giving me 30 seconds to drink water. What's the next thing? Okay. Right. So yes, we've talked about. Okay, then right. Let's talk about the writing process. The writing process. The writing process. Writing is definitely way more than just putting words together. Sorry, just a minute. Okay. Yes. Now, when we're talking about writing, we're also talking about basically creating content. Okay? It's about creating content by way of writing. And what it's important that you know the difference between academic writing and informal writing. Academic writing versus informal writing. Now, I know that some of us hear the word writing and immediately think, wahala or long thing. But let me ask you something. Have you ever sent a WhatsApp message, posted something on Facebook, typed a CV, written a report, or even replied to an email? Now, if you've done all of that, and I dare say that we all have, then you've written. That's writing. So really, we're not starting from point zero. We're just learning how to do it, with purpose, with polish, and with power. Writing is more than just putting words on paper or on screen. It's really about, communicating your thoughts clearly, persuading your audience logically, presenting your ideas in a way that, that makes people take you seriously. And so whether you're writing a school paper or a pitch or a grant proposal or even a tweet that you want to go viral, you're basically crafting a message, okay? And so what I want to teach you is how to understand, the key stages of the writing process, how to improve your structure and your flow, and then how to write in a way that your audience can understand and remember, and also how to avoid, common mistakes, because those common mistakes, they can weaken your message. So, writing well doesn't, like I've always said, and I'm not an advocate for big grammar, because writing well doesn't mean, you need to use big grammar. It basically just means that you need to be clear, you need to be convincing, and you need to be correct. Okay, they need to be correct. Now, I mentioned, okay, writing doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't, it's just like speaking, right? But it's on paper. So if you can tell a good story, right, or explain your ideas clearly in conversation, then you already have the right tools. You can write well, too. But I know that even speaking is also a challenge for quite a number of people, especially in this part of the world. Okay, so what you really want to do is don't aim for perfection from the very get-go. Just aim for progress. Step by step, you'll build your writing muscle or even your speaking muscle, as the case may be. And by the end, of it all, you'll be writing with more confidence, with more structure, and even with more impact than ever before. Of course, you need to assess yourself. You need to ask yourself and give yourself an honest answer. how do I currently feel about writing? You don't have to overthink it. And this is just for you to you, right? Just express your truths, you know? Do you when you're thinking about writing something, do you feel excited? Do you feel anxious? Do you feel confused? Do you feel confident? Do you feel afraid? It's really all welcome, because at least if you recognize, your feelings towards a particular thing, then you know how to address that thing. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah, basically that's it about that's it about writing. So there are two types of writing. There's academic writing, and then there's informal writing, right? And they sometimes they can be pitched against one another. Now let's be honest, most of us write every day, from WhatsApp messages, from social media posts, from love letters to long emails at work. Not all writing is the same, right? But the way you write a text to your friend can never be the way you write a seminar paper or business proposal. I'm sure that we all agree in that regard. Now, I've seen some appalling cases of people trying to write formal or academic papers, as it were, and they're using words as though they were just sending a text message or things like that. And I think it's just shameful. But we judge. We listen. We don't judge. Okay, so writing has different levels of formality, right? And it also depends on your audience and the purpose. So basically, we're going to, like I said, we're going to be talking about academic writing and informal writing. Now, what is academic writing? Academic writing is the type of writing that we use in universities, like research, professional settings, emails, things like that, and formal emails, of course. And it's not about sounding big, I keep saying this, I can't reiterate it enough. It's about being clear, it's about being objective, it's about being respectful of your leaders' intelligence. So there's some key features where academic writing is involved, and we have what? Number one, the formal tone. You have to sound polished, professional, no slang, right? And then we have the objective approach, right? You have to focus on the facts, not feelings, unless you're asked, of course, right? And then it has to be evidence-based, okay? Evidence-based. Use data, research, citations. Also, I think number 4, you have to have good use of standard grammar and punctuation, no emojis, no abbreviations, no shortcuts, okay? And then no contractions. So you, rather than say I can't, don't say I can't, say I cannot. Don't say I don't, say I do not, okay? That is for academic purposes, of course, because I mean, at the end of the day, we're too used to writing text messages with abbreviations and contractions and things like that, that we actually forget when we're writing formal literature, as it were. Okay, so please let's be guided in that regard. And then, of course, with informal writing, that's like writing in real life, right? It's what you use in text, it's what you use in casual emails, it's what you use in blog posts, it's what you use in podcasts, scripts, YouTube descriptions, things like that. It's relaxed, it's personal, it's flexible. The kind of writing where you can let your personality shine through those words, as it were. And so at that point, you can use as many contractions as you want. You can use emojis, you can use slang, LOL, die, chill, things like that. You can, the tone is conversational and personal. The structure can be loose or flexible depending on how it is that you want to get your message across. And then it often reflects, your voice, okay, and your opinion. You can actually hear sometimes your voice and opinion shines through that. Okay, so yeah, basically that's the difference between academic and informal writing. And so when do you use academic writing? When do you use informal writing? In a university essay, you want to use academic writing. In a WhatsApp group chat, you want to use informal writing, right? In LinkedIn article, you want to mix and match, okay? Because there's the option for mixing and matching. A research proposal, of course, you want to be academic. In Instagram caption, of course, informal. Your personal blog, it can be informal or it can be hybrid, depending on your audience, depending on what you're trying to get across. Okay. Now, some of us on this call might naturally write informally, and that's okay, right? Because your voice is powerful too. But when it comes to academic and professional settings, you have to code switch, okay? Your writing must not, sound like it's being informal, okay? You may want to just, switch how you're writing or speaking, depending on who is listening. So to sum up, right, informal writing has its place, but in academia or in professional environments, your writing must be structured. It must be clear, it must be respectful, and it must be evidence-driven. You don't need big grammar, just aim to sound informed, focused, and credible, okay? And then we'll move on to sentence construction and paragraphing. Now, let's be real. Before we write an amazing essay, right, or a blog, or a proposal, we need to get the basics right. Now, think of writing like building a house. Your sentences are your bricks, okay? And your paragraphs are your walls. Now, if the bricks are cracked or the walls are leaning, your whole house will be shaky, okay? So we have to be able to write clear, grammatically correct sentences, okay? That's us keeping it simple, okay? So a strong sentence usually follows the subject verb object subject verb object pattern, okay? Like the student, who is the subject, wrote, which is the verb, the report, which is the object, okay? Student, subject, wrote, verb, and then report, the object. And that's it. But you can also vary your sentences by writing interesting, So let's look at types of sentences, for instance, okay? We have simple sentences like, oh, I love reading. Okay, that's a simple sentence. I love reading. Then we have compound sentences like and this one joins related ideas with and, with but, or with or, like I love reading and also enjoy writing. That's a compound sentence, okay? And then we have the complex sentence that has a main idea and a supporting idea, like, although I was tired, I finished my homework. Although I was tired, I finished my homework, okay? Now, that variety keeps your reader engaged, okay? like seasoning in food. You know, you don't just cook with salt alone, right? You add what's called spices and sauces and things like that, basically. So there's some common mistakes that you need to avoid, right? There's something called run-on sentences. Run-on sentences. An example of that would be the lecturer gave us the assignments. We have to do it by Monday. There's no comma, there's no conjunction, there's nothing in the center of it all. And we do that a lot in Nigeria. Because this sentence I just read out has two full ideas and you've mashed it into one. Okay? So the corrected, of course, version would be the lecturer gave us an assignment and we must submit it by Monday. So you can see the difference between the two sentences. Okay? And then, of course, there's also sentence fragments like because I was tired, which is an incomplete thought. And then you then end up changing it to something like, oh, because I was tired, I went to bed early, which is like now the complete thought, okay? And then there's something also called paragraphing, one at a time, okay? Remember I said that your paragraphs are your walls, okay? So let's build the walls. A good paragraph will stick to one clear idea and each part has, you know, a job to do, okay? So in the paragraph structure, you have a topic sentence, right? That topic sentence introduces the main point of the paragraph. Example, time management is an essential skill for students, okay? And then you have supporting sentences. These supporting sentences add explanations, they add facts, they add examples or reasons. And so when you say things like time management is an essential skill for students, you now add, it helps them balance study, social life, and rest. That is the supporting sentence. Furthermore, saying that, oh, without it, students may struggle with stress and missed deadlines, right? That's a supporting sentence. And then we have the concluding sentence, which can be optional, of course, but then you say things like, therefore, developing this skill early can lead to academic success. Now, the concluding sentence, what it does that it summarizes or links to the next paragraph. Okay, so a paragraph is like a mini essay, right? It has the beginning, it has a middle, and sometimes it has an end. All right, so strong writing begins with strong sentences, okay, and of course well built paragraphs. So if your foundation is solid, your whole message becomes easier to follow, and of course, it becomes an enjoyable read. So before you chase the style and the flair, master the bricks and build your walls first. Okay. Then next, we have cohesion and coherence. Cohesion and coherence. Basically, it's cohesion and coherence makes your writing flow, you know, flow like a river. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever read something that felt like, you know, a smooth conversation, like, you know, one idea flows into the other, you know, without any confusion. And then you read another one and it just felt scattered, like, you know, jumping from Lagos to Nairobi without a flight plan, right? Now that's the difference between cohesion and coherence, okay? These two are what make your writing easy to follow and also hard to forget. Cohesion is the glue, right? that holds it together, right? Cohesion is all about how your sentences and ideas stick together. It's like, suya and pepper, right? Or like egusi and pounded yam, right? The flavors must match. In writing, right, cohesion happens through linking words and grammatical connectors. Like now these little words guide your reader from one thought to the next. Okay, so you have cohesion devices like addition. Okay, so you say something like, and in addition, you say something like, moreover, you say something like, furthermore, things like that. And then you have also the contrast aspect, which talks about, like the opposite of that thing, perhaps. So you say things like but, you say things like however, you say things like although, you say things like even, you say things like, sorry, you say things like even though, you say things like on the other hand. An example of that would be, oh, he studied hard. However, he struggled with the exam stress. And then, of course, we also have the cause and effect cohesive devices like because, like therefore, like as a result, like since, like due to. Okay, so an example of that might be, oh, she missed the deadline because her internet was unstable. And then we have the time/sequence cohesive devices like first, like next, like then, like after that, like finally. Okay, so you need to think of your cohesive devices as road signs, like in your writing. They help your reader know where you're going to next. Okay? And then we have coherence. Coherence is the big picture, right? If cohesion is about gluing the sentences and things like that, coherence is about making sense, your writing making sense as a whole, right? So every paragraph, every idea, every example must connect logically to the central message, right? So how do you make your writing coherent? Stick to one main idea per paragraph. Arrange ideas in a logical order, chronological, importance, comparison, any of those, okay? And then use clear topic sentences to guide your reader. Don't jump around randomly like a storyteller, okay? Just, okay, so for instance, saying something like, social media is popular, trees are important, I like movies. That's confusing, right? It's not even coherent, basically. But then when you say something like, well, social media has changed how people connect, it allows for instant communication, especially among youth. However, it also raises concerns about privacy, then that makes sense. Do you understand? It comes together, it's coherent. Okay, so when you have a clear topic, logic, then there's a logical flow, and then there are linked ideas. Okay, that's what happens. You have a clear topic, you have logical flow, you have linked ideas. So cohesion and coherence are what separates scattered writing from powerful writing. So they help your reader to enjoy the journey, and they actually get your point. So before you click submit on an email or send or something like that, you need to ask yourself, right? Do my ideas flow smoothly? Does everything connect to one main message? So if you get, if your answer to that question is yes, and then the sky is your limit. Okay, the sky is your limit. Uh, Imagine that you're taking a road trip from Lagos to Abuja, right? You've got your snacks, you've got your playlist, you've got your friends, but you don't have a map. And you keep turning left and then right and then going in circles. That's what happens when you write without coherence, right? No direction, no flow. Your reader gets lost and frustrated. So when your ideas are clear, when they are organized, when they are connected, it's like going on a road trip without any bumps on the way. Okay? So it's important to ask questions when where coherence is concerned. Does this idea belong here? Right? What comes next? Is there a clear path from start to finish? Okay? And it's important that when you're writing and you want your writing to be coherent, that you stay on topic. Do not go off topic, right? Don't jump around from one thing to the other. You need to arrange your ideas in a logical order, okay? Arrange your ideas in a logical order. You know, your writing should build. You need to start with the main idea, then develop it step by step. Don't jump or don't dump all your thoughts at once, okay? And then, of course, you need to have common structures. Again, it has to be chronological, time, order. It has to have cause and effect. It has to be general, and then, of course, narrowed down to specific. And then, of course, problem solution oriented, as it were. All right, you need to use clear transitions, just like, you know, bridges connect two sides of a river. You know, the transition words need to connect to your paragraphs. They tell and they help your reader know what is coming next. Okay. Remember to use words like in addition, furthermore. You need to show contrast, like however. You need to move forward with then, with next, you know, with after that. Remember all of those things. So, I mean, coherent writing should feel like a journey with a beginning, with a middle, and with an end. So, yeah, what's the big deal about coherence? It's important that you understand that it is the GPS, okay? It is the GPS. Cohesion is the glue, sorry. Cohesion is the glue, coherence is the GPS, okay? It is the Google Maps, it is what will, you know, help you basically, and all of that. We've spoken about signposting before. We're going to be sharing the slides so you'll be able to look at this because we're running out of time. So I would say that we should go on to the next slide, which talks about editing and proofreading techniques. So you need to know how to edit and proofread like a professional, okay? So yeah, we've all been there, all right? Writing is like cooking, right? And editing is like when you taste the food, adjust the seasoning, and then of course clean the plate before serving it to the guests, right? So there's something called content check. That content check is you asking your question, asking yourself, have I actually answered the question or task? Are my arguments strong and well supported? All right. If it's possible to be persuasive, have I convinced them? Okay. If it's academic, did I include evidence or citations? You know, things like that. You need to confirm, you know, your content to be sure that you've put in the right thing in there. And then, of course, there's the structure check that you need to do. The structure check check will tell you that, do I have a clear introduction? Do I have a body? Do I have a conclusion? Does the whole piece flow logically, or does it feel scattered? You know, those are questions that you need to ask and things that you need to check with regards to your structure, okay? Then your sentence check, okay? Are my sentences clear and not too long or confusing? Did I avoid run-ons or fragments? Things like that are questions that you need to ask with regards to your sentence check. Your word choice check, like is my vocabulary appropriate for the audience? Did I avoid slang, cliches, or repetition? Okay, because it's important that you use strong verbs. You need to be precise. You need to replace vague words with stuff. Strange vague words like stuff and things, you know, with clearer alternatives, you know. So you shouldn't be talking to a group of executives and be saying, oh, you know, stuff, the stuff is this and this, or refer to them as you guys. You know, that is a big no and a red flag, okay? And so you also need to then look at your grammar and your spelling check. Now, this is where you catch the small mistakes, the commas, the full stops, the spelling errors, the typos. Don't rely on autocorrect alone. It's helpful, but it is not perfect, okay? It's not perfect. And then, of course, there's also some techniques that will help improve your editing, and some of them will be, oh, you read aloud, okay? Because if your at sometimes your eyes may not see what is wrong, but your ears, when you're reading it, will hear it, okay? So reading aloud helps you to catch the awkward phrases or the long-winded sentences, or even missing words sometimes, okay? Then you can also use online tools. They're very important, but don't fully rely on them. Grammarly is good. Hemingway Editor is good. Even Google Docs, you know, is good. They help, but again, they are not human. So use them, but then still review yourself after, because you're the writer, okay? Then you can also do peer review by swapping with your classmates, you know. 2 eyes are good, 4 eyes are better, right? So ask someone else to help you read your work, right? Tell them, I mean, they might see things that you missed, because you know your brain knows what it is that you want to say, okay? So you need to give your pair a checklist of what to look for. Don't just say, what do you think? All right, tell them what you want them to look for and all of that. And then, of course, print it out and use a pen. Sometimes staring at the screen for too long makes you go blind to your own mistakes, okay? So if you print out your work and you read it with fresh eyes, it can work like magic. So editing, the editing phase is not a punishment. It's where the real magic actually happens, you know? It's where good writing becomes great writing. So before you submit or send anything, just give it, you know, that extra polish, because, you know, your first draft is you speaking, right? But the edited draft is you being heard, okay? Yeah, and then we have the fundamentals of public speaking, okay? Fundamentals of public speaking. Yeah, public speaking makes many people nervous, granted, right? But even the smartest person in the room can freeze when all eyes are on them. For one, I do not like to speak publicly, especially when it's a physical meeting. But you know what? Public speaking is not just for politicians or pastors or TED talkers. It's actually a life skill. So whether you're standing in front of the classroom, defending your project, pitching a startup idea, or leading a team meeting, it's important to know that it's a life skill that everybody must have. You may not like it, okay? You may not like it, but you must know how to do it. Okay, you must know how to handle public speaking, because it's one of the most valuable and transferable skills that you can develop. Why? Because your ideas are only powerful if people can understand them, if people can feel them, if people can remember them. So you use it when you want to explain a point in class. You can use it when you want to defend your final year project. You can use it when you want to train your staff or colleagues. You can use it to pitch your business to investors, present your research at a seminar, lead a church group or community meeting. It's not about speaking big grammar. I keep saying this. It's about confidence. It's about clarity. It's about connection. Okay, so it's important. You need to be very confident when you're speaking publicly. Okay, because people don't believe your message if you yourself don't believe it first, right? So you need to prepare and practice, because your confidence will grow with repetition. Okay, you need to stand tall. You need to stand tall because posture affects your mindset. You need to breathe deeply because it calms your nerves and grounds your voice. Okay, and then of course you need to do something called positive self-talk. Positive self-talk. So you replace words like I'll mess up with I'm ready. I'm ready. And even if your voice shakes, speak anyway. Because remember, real courage is doing it afraid. Okay? So then there's also clarity, all right? You need your audience shouldn't have to be able to shouldn't have to guess what you're trying to say. Okay, you need to speak clearly. Sometimes if you're not so sure, you need to speak slowly also. Slowly and clearly, not fast and mumbled. Okay, so you use simple, strong words. Don't hide behind jargon. Okay, stick to one main point at a time. All right, repeat key points for emphasis, and then of course, clear is better than clever. Clear is better than clever. There's connection, the connection aspect of it. This is where the real magic actually happens, because great speakers don't just talk, they connect. Okay, so what you want to do is that you want to make eye contact. Don't scan the ceiling, right? Use stories or examples that your audience can relate to. Watch their faces. Are they nodding? Are they confused? Are they bored? You need to know. Then ask rhetorical questions, say things like, oh, let me show you why this matters. Do you understand? Aha. And then, what else do I want to say with regards to this? It's important to draw roadmaps, okay? It's important to draw roadmaps. Preparing your speech, you need to know how to deliver, your words properly. You need to know how to deliver your words properly. Your body language needs to be, on point. You need to be able to handle stage fright. You need, to engage your audience. Basically, yes, that is it. So with regards to public speaking, this is extremely important. You need to make sure that your voice is modulated. Your pace is, it's not, you're not too fast, you're not too slow. Again, speak slowly enough to be understood, right? Don't rush through important parts. You need to pause for effects. Okay, use pauses like full stops to give your listener time, to think, to weigh what your next words are going to be. Okay, and then there's something called pitch, right? Pitch gives your voice personality, so pitch is the highness and the lowness of your voice. And guess what? It shows emotion. So if your voice is high pitched, right, that can show that, oh, you're excited, that. So you say something like, oh, wow, you actually did it. That's high pitch, okay? Or you use a lower pitch like, oh, now let's talk about what really matters. That means that you're showing calmness, you're showing seriousness, basically, okay? So yes, it's important that you watch your pitch depending on what it is that you're trying to convey, okay? And then stage fright. Stage fright is real, okay? So you're about to speak, your palms are sweaty, your heart is racing, your mouth feels dry, and you're wondering, why can't I just disappear? Okay, you know what? You don't want to disappear. And there are strategies that you can use to manage nervousness. Basically, number one strategy is to prepare thoroughly, because confidence starts with preparation. So know your material like it's your own name. Okay, if you've practiced well, you won't panic. You know, your mind will not panic. It will basically remember. Okay, and then you need to breathe deeply. Breathe deeply. Before you speak, take a moment. Breathe in slowly. Hold it and release it. Do this like 3 to 4 times. And then deep, by the time you do that, you deep breathly, your body relaxes, and then it tells you, I've got this, okay? I've got this. Practice in front of a mirror, in front of friends. Start small, do you understand? Don't just rush into talking in front of thousands of people or hundreds of people. Start small, step by step. And if you can present to your sibling or your best friend without shaking, then you're halfway there, okay? You're halfway there. Then use visualization, okay? Imagine yourself, speaking successfully and being applauded. Close your eyes, just think about it. The mental rehearsal trains your brain to expect success, not failure. Athletes use it, public speakers can also use it. And then, of course, positive affirmations. Positive affirmations are important. You say things to yourself like, I'm prepared, I'm confident, I have something valuable to say. Not, I'm going to mess up or they'll laugh at me. No, because if you don't believe in yourself, why should the audience believe in you? Okay? So it's important. Embrace the butterflies, okay? Embrace the butterflies. The goal is not to eliminate nervousness, but it's to ride the wave, okay? So think of the butterflies in your stomach as energy. They can either make you freeze or they can make you fly. And butterflies have wings, right? So yeah, they can make you fly, okay? So nerves are normal, okay? Stage fright is human, but you have the tools to manage it and even use it to your advantage, okay? So don't be in a hurry to be perfect. Just be prepared, be present, and be passionate. That's what makes an unforgettable speaker, okay? Then, of course, it's important to maintain eye contact, to use your body gestures, and, make sure that, because your body speaks, right? You need to make sure that your body is saying the right thing, okay? So look people in the eye when you're talking to them, okay? But not like a statue, but just, look them in the eye, scan the room that you're coming into, slowly look at the different people across, the left, the right, the center, and all of that. Hold someone's gaze for about 2 to 3 minutes. Move on naturally. If you're nervous, right, just look above their heads. It still gives the illusion of contact, of eye contact, as it were. Okay, then let your hands talk politely. Okay, politely use your hands because your hands can help a message come alive. So if you use them well, when you speak with natural open gestures, you come across as confident, as passionate. But when you stand stiff like a pole, or worse, you keep your hands in your pockets, then your energy drops, okay? So definitely open your palms when you're explaining, okay? Use gestures to highlight, numbers or steps like first, second, third, things like that. And then let your gestures, let them match your words, okay? Don't point aggressively at people, because it can come across as being threatening and things like that. Do not cross your arms, because then that signals defensiveness, okay? And don't fidget, okay? So yeah, your whole body basically is doing a lot of talking. So before you say a word, just make sure that your posture, your movements, and your facial expressions are, they're adequate, they're proper. You're not passing the wrong message across, basically. Okay, so you stand with with purpose. Keep your feet and shoulder width apart, solid but relaxed. Don't rock, don't sway, don't pace, nervously, things like that. You can walk confidently back and forth, but also keep moving back and forth to, a minimum. Don't overdo it, because, sometimes it spooks people, okay? Occasionally, just walk with intention to shift attention or emphasize a point, okay? Your facial expression matters. Smile occasionally. It shows warmth and approachability, okay? Don't frown or appear tense unless the topic calls for seriousness, okay? And then own your pace. Own your pace. So imagine the stage is a speaking area and it belongs to you. So you need to take your time. You need to stand tall. Even if you're nervous, your body can show confidence, and soon your mind will catch up to it, okay? So remember that you're not just speaking with your mouth, you're speaking with your eyes, you're speaking with your hands, you're speaking with, your posture, everything. So you need to train your body to support your message, not distract from it, okay? And then when your words and body are saying the same thing, do you understand? It makes people know that, they're really listening to, something that is worthwhile, okay? Connecting with the audience. Connecting with the audience. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever sat through a presentation where the speaker had all the facts, but zero energy, no personality, no connection? You know that kind. You don't want to be that person, okay? You do not want to be that person, because that happens when a speaker basically forgets the most important thing, and that is the audience. Because great speakers do not just deliver information, they build a bridge, right, between their message and the people that are listening. And so how do we build that connection, right? You start with a hook. I've said this before. Start strong, grab attention. Don't start with good morning. My topic today is, no, you pull them in, okay, with something that they can relate to. Like I gave an earlier example. Like you said things like, oh, have you ever left your assignment until the last minute and then promise that you promise yourself that you never do that again? At that point, people start to nod, because yes, they've been in that position at some point or the other, or you can also open with like a personal story, something funny, something real, something inspiring, a quote that might even hit home, or a rhetorical question, like I said before. And then also use local and relevant examples. Don't just speak from a textbook, like reading out something. Speak from life. Use examples that people will understand, like from campus life, family life, politics, Nollywood, music, market life, whatever works. Instead of just coming and saying leadership requires responsibility. No, try, just try something fun, something interesting, something that that will involve them. Okay, so don't make it like a monologue. Make it a moment. Engage them. Okay, engage them. Ask for show of hands. How many of you have tried public speaking before? Let's see who raises up their hands. Things like that. Just keep it conversational, and especially where it's appropriate, of course. Keep it conversational. Use everyday language where possible. Smile, react, laugh with them. Let them feel that they're part of the conversation. And then, of course, read the room and response. Connection is a two-way street. Watch their faces. Are they smiling? Are they confused? Are they nodding? Are they sleeping? Whatever, just basically that's what you want to do. Okay, so here's something I want you to remember. No matter how good your content is, if people don't feel connected to you, they won't remember. They will not remember. Okay, so that's extremely important. You also need to ensure that you use visual aids, pretty much like what I'm doing right now. You can see that I have my slides up, all right? I'm using fonts that people can see. I'm using, if I needed to use chat, I would have used them, but I'm using pictorial representations for my slides and all of that. You need to sometimes use props and things like that, okay? So yeah, basically, that is that for that. Okay, now to the main point of English language, right? It's important that you learn how to properly pronounce your words and be heard and understood. And it's a problem that we have in Nigeria, okay? Let's be honest, when it comes to speaking English clearly, most of us have felt unsure at some point. Maybe somebody said, sorry, can you repeat that? Or maybe you've doubted yourself because of your accent. Maybe your accent is too Nigerian or too Yoruba or too Wari or too Igbo, whatever it is. I know that a lot of people have had challenges with that. But you don't need to sound British or American, no. Do you understand? You just need to be clear and need to be understood. And that's exactly what I'm trying to say to you here, okay? So it's important that you're able to pronounce your words correctly, okay? Avoid misunderstandings in class, meetings, or interviews. And you need to be more confident when reading, when presenting, and even when answering, okay? Basically, you need to also build respect and credibility. This is what proper pronunciation and elocution does for you. And the big idea is that pronunciation and clarity is not an accent. Repeat after me. It's not about sounding foreign. It's about sounding clear. Okay? We're not trying to cancel your Nigerian identity. We're not trying to train you to sound like the queen or anything like that. Okay? We're basically training your muscle for clarity. Okay? So there's something called word stress. There's something called vowel sound. Okay? Word stress. This is like what syllable that you emphasize. Vowel sounds is like, so like Nigerians tend to flatten some vowel sounds. What we'll do is that, or what I'll do for you right now is that I'll open those up, okay? So there's something also called consonant clarity. Do you understand? Saying the endings of your words. Rather than say work, you say worked. Do you understand? Worked is the correct pronunciation for W-O-R-K-E-D and not work. But a lot of people tend to forget the D at the end, even the E that comes before the D, and they just go and say work. And then intonation, the melody of your speech, rising and falling and pausing, things like that. Okay. So I will just give you some common challenges that we mix up as Nigerians. Okay, so there's the word SHEEP and there's the word SHIP. They're pronounced differently. One is sheep, the other one is ship. Sheep, ship. One is a short I, the other one is a long E sound. Okay, so sheep is the animal, ship is the water vehicle, okay? And then we have the issue of dropping the consonant at the end of words, like walking, okay, W-A-L-K-I-N-G. I find that a lot of people say walking. No, it's walking. Doesn't mean you're saying walking. You're not using the G, but you're saying walking because the G is far at the end of your throat. Okay? So you're saying things like walking. And you're not pronouncing the L either. You should not pronounce the L in walking. It is walking and not walking. Okay? And then we have another one that has the long and short vowel sound, like live and leave. I'm leaving, that is, I'm going away. I'm living, that means that I reside in a particular place, okay? And then, of course, different ones like that. So in our next class, this is something that we'll pay more attention to, right? Words like ship, words like sheep, words like cheap, okay? Yeah, basically, that is it for today. We'll continue in our next class from where we stopped today, where we were talking about pronunciation, the vowel sounds, the consonant sounds, the dropping of the letters at the end of the words, because time is definitely fast spent. I've gone about 24 hours over the time that I'm supposed to have ended today. So yes, I just want you to keep in mind that whenever you're speaking, whenever you're trying to pronounce a word, sometimes if you're the kind of person who is concerned about how you sound, look at the mirror when you're speaking, okay? I will share these slides with you, and if you're interested, you may want to practice some of these things, but we will come back to them in our next class. I hope that today has been impactful. I hope you've had an enjoyable time, because I have, and I hope to see you next time in this class. Thank you very much for joining me today. I'm sorry that I went over the time, but you know, this content is quite voluminous, but yeah, it's also very important that we know these things. So God bless you, everyone, and thank you for being here.
A very big round of applause to our trainer. Thank you so much, ma'am. I enjoyed every bit of today's class. Thank you, and I wish you more knowledge. All right. So if you are on the call and you are yet to fill up the attendance, please indicate in the chat room. But if you have done that, then you may discard the information. So like she said, the slide is going to be shared to everyone, as well as the recording of today's session. All right, for those of you who are joining our summer class, we are continuing tomorrow. So please do not be late for class. So just like our trainer said again, we'll be meeting again in August, all right? So please keep your fingers crossed and then keep reading ahead. And I believe that we are going to be doing well in our speech and writing, okay? Thank you so much, and do have a very beautiful Friday. Follow us on all of our social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, engage us in our posts, all right? Thank you so much and have a very beautiful day. Bye for now.